Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I am going to talk about something that people have asked, which is like why, well, nobody asks this, but people say, they complain, which I'm going to take as an ask, so that I can help you. Men complain that any time that they do anything sexy or sexual to initiate, it goes badly. So I've told you that a good, way of initiating is to go over and kiss a woman and say she looks beautiful. However, not everybody listens to me, unfortunately. And so some men insist on doing stuff like, basically like dick pics or the equivalent, like sexy text messages to like a woman who doesn't ever talk sexy, or lewd jokes, the boob grab. Never do the boob grab. I've said this like millions of times. Why don't people listen? No woman wants their boobs grabbed out of nowhere. It hurts. But like other things like that, and this is cool if you and your wife have this real sexual joking relationship. That is extremely rare in long-term monogamy, except sometimes like if you're on vacation in Aruba, but most men, they don't get this because what it is it's a failure of empathy, really. So they think, oh my God, it would like make my day / month / life if my wife randomly emailed me a picture of her topless and said, I can't wait till you come home, and, bleep, 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 all these dirty things. So they think, boy, that would be awesome. So maybe my wife has a lower sex drive than me, but still, she got some sex drive, and so I am going to really appeal to her sex drive by saying these sexual things that I think would be so hot, basically, if I was a woman. So men think, here, this is empathy. I'm a woman. I'm picturing myself being this hot, naked woman, and I am so sexy. Already, you see, it's derailing, right? Already, empathy is failing. So what men have to think is my analogy of eating when you're not hungry, right? So women have no spontaneous sex drive. Sure, sometimes you ovulate, sometimes you see a hot dude at the gym, whatever. But let's just make it really simple, because it's a 20-minute podcast and we really need to kind of oversimplify so that things can be very basic. Assume your wife has no sex drive, the sex drive of a piece of drywall. So if she has no sex drive, it's like any other human drive. It's like trying to sleep when you're not tired or eat when you're not hungry. But let me give you a nice analogy, right? So let's say that your wife was not hungry, which for most women is a blessed state. To think that you're not hungry and you don't have to worry about calories, how much you eat, when you eat, how fat you are for 1 second is wonderful. So women love not being hungry, right? So let's say that she wasn't hungry and you say to her, here's a cookie. Want a cookie? So your wife is going to be like, no, I don't want a cookie. I'm not hungry, right? In the case where she could say no to a cookie, some people can, some people can't. But she'll say, no, I don't want to eat a cookie. So, however, what if your wife wasn't hungry and your son or your daughter, you just picture your son if you have boys, because son usually has the keys to his mommy's heart in a different way, came over and said, oh, mommy, I baked you a special cookie at school. I love you. Would your wife eat the cookie even though she's not hungry? Yeah, like obviously. And you could have just offered her a cookie and she would have said, no, didn't I say I wasn't hungry? And then your kid comes over with a cookie and all of a sudden, look who's eating, right? So similarly, your wife could be not tired enough to go to sleep at 8:30 when it's you, but if your kid is like, mommy, lay with me, well, frequently she goes in and falls asleep. So these are times where somebody's emotions are so strong that it goes against their natural instinct. So what you're trying to do is the same thing. Your wife has no desire to have sex at all, just like she isn't hungry or she isn't sleepy in those situations. But how can you emotionally appeal to her to get into the headspace where she's going to have sex with you anyway? Now, if you're like, oh, I don't want to have that shitty sex that she's going to have with me anyway when she doesn't want to, then you can refer back to my Responsive Desire podcast, because if she begins to have sex with you frequently, she wants to do it, and her sex drive ramps up from the act of starting to have sex. That's how women differ from men. Men have spontaneous desire. Women have responsive desire within monogamy. So how do you get her to a place where she wants to eat the cookie, as it were? Well, it's not by advertising the benefits of the cookie. That is not what your child did in that scenario. They didn't say, this cookie is extremely delicious because there's a recipe for cookies that we followed and blah, 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 blah. No, they said, I love you. I made this just for you, and they imply that if the mother doesn't eat it, they're going to be sad because this was a special thing, right? And so then that pulls at her heartstrings and she eats when she's not hungry, right? But what you're trying to do is extol a cookie when she's not hungry. She doesn't want the cookie. She does not want your penis. She does not want your body. She does not want to have sex. She doesn't want those things. But what would she want? She would want to make you happy when she feels that you also are trying to make her happy, because you guys are in a loving, happy relationship. So this is really how you should think about emotional foreplay. And I can't really emphasize this enough. You're trying to get your wife into a headspace where she will try to have sex. You're not trying to turn her on. Don't try to turn your wife on. So that's a wonderful title that I'm going to put for this podcast episode. Don't try to turn your wife on. Don't try to turn her on. It's like advertising all the benefits of a meal when she's not hungry. She's going to think it sounds disgusting. The same meal that she would love if she was starving. Now you're like, how can I get her to be starving? Man, I don't know. I would not be having to work anymore if I had figured out that formula of how to make your wife be starving for sex. But what I do know is that there are plenty of ways that you can have a great sex life with your wife, as long as you understand it's not going to be like porn, and it's not going to be like a honeymoon stage, whether it was with her or with the girlfriend that you remember from whenever, who probably acts just like your wife right now. So what would this entail? What I was saying was, people, when men hear women say, oh, I wish there was foreplay all day. That would be emotional foreplay. What does she mean? She means she wishes that you were acting loving and cute and sending little romantic text messages and shit like that. You could refer back to my How to Be Romantic podcast, because that makes her in the headspace where she remembers she loves you and she wants to eat your cookie because she loves you so much, right? Like with your kid. And so what you do not want, I've seen this mistake. The woman says, oh, I want emotional foreplay all day. And so he says, oh, okay. So in the morning, I'm going to send her a text message that's a meme about blowjobs. I'm going to follow it up with telling her all the ways I want to go down on her. When I get home, I'm going to grab her boobs. I'm going to French kiss her. Then, baby, we're going to be good to go by 9 p.m. By 9 p.m., she hates you. This has been like the worst day. You have been so insensitive. She has no idea what this bullshit is, when in her mind what she asked for was something that was going to put her in the mood. Now, it's a semantic problem. She says, put me in the mood with emotional foreplay, and you hear, put me in a sexual mood. No, it is put me in a mood where I remember that I love you, so that we start to have sex and then I can feel my desire. Now, this brings up the question about all the men who are like, oh, but I don't want to live like that. I want to be with a woman who spontaneously desires me all the time. In which case I say, do you want to be heterosexual, or are you willing to give that up? Because if you're heterosexual, then you're going to be dealing with heterosexual women. And they, within any relationship long-term, are not going to be experiencing spontaneous desire. So you can either be single and try to be so hot and appealing that you can have a parade, a never-ending parade of hot women who are within the first date or so going to have amazing sex with you, and then you move on to the next one. Many men cannot pull this off. Some men can. It's rare, but if that's you, then maybe you are wasted on marriage. Maybe you are in fact James Bond and can really pull that off for the rest of your life. Or if you are a man that's heterosexual and wants to at some point be in a long-term relationship with a heterosexual woman, then you can just say, yes, there are many fantasies people have in the world, such as having a Lamborghini and owning my private island and having a wife that is flooded with spontaneous desire whenever I open the door to the house and she sees me. So those are all fantasies, but what I can do in reality is I can try to get my wife into the mood of being receptive to me, not an aroused mood. The arousal you work on once you start having sex. That's when you can bring out all the tricks that you Googled about how to be a better lover, and all of the tips and tricks in my podcast about 10 ways to make your highly sensitive wife want sex more, and you could be the most responsive and attentive and wonderful lover in the world. But don't start with that stuff before you've already started sex, right? Because she doesn't have any desire and you're trying to make her eat when she's not hungry, which only makes people disgusted. So that is also, I wrote about that in my post where a man, God bless him, wrote, why doesn't my wife just go down on me when she doesn't want sex? Boy, seems good. Everyone's happy except her, because she's not hungry. She doesn't have any desire. So for her to go over and go down on you when she has zero desire is like gross. Sorry, it's gross. She doesn't want it. She isn't aroused. If you said, why can't she sometimes go down on me during sex? Sure, I am with you. When she's already aroused, feeling uninhibited and her juices are flowing, for sure. But to say, listen, it's cool she's not in the mood at all, but maybe she should just go down on me. Yes, some women can and will, particularly in early stages, but overall, if you continue to associate your penis and sexual activity with her unaroused state, you're doing some bad classical conditioning. She's going to start to see the sight of your penis and your naked body as linked associatively in her mind and body with a state of non-arousal. Oh, fuck, here it comes. I guess I have to go down on him. You don't want that. You want her to go down on you in the middle of sex, in the middle, when she's aroused already, right? This is why I keep saying, whenever I talk about the order of operations here, many people do it wrong. The man goes down on the woman, and then she's ready for sex, and then she's ready for sleep. And then what happens to him? Nothing. Nothing much, right? So there should be a lot of stopping and starting with oral, manual, and penetration, so that all these forms of stimulation don't have to all occur straight in a line, because then the guy doesn't really get any attention paid to him at all, because things are just proceeding in this way that he thinks they have to go. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, this is due to the same fallacy, right? That his job is to turn her on. So many guys assume, okay, we're getting into bed, so I'm going to turn her on by going down on her. No, this is frequently very wrong. She's not stopping you because of the social idea that it is, quote, nice and giving of you to go down on her, and also because you like it. You know, don't forget, you're always telling her, I can't wait to go down on you, so she thinks you like it because you like it. But in reality, anytime that a man tries to go down on a woman and she's not even aroused yet, at least like 20 minutes of that is going to be misguided, because she isn't aroused yet. This is why there needs to be, most of the time, foreplay before that. Guys consider going down on a woman foreplay. It's not foreplay. This is like the main event. That's what leads to the orgasm or close to it. It's like sex. We need foreplay before that, usually. Kissing and touching in particular, massage, things like that. Because men think about it as foreplay because their penis isn't involved, but it's not foreplay to the woman. It's directly touching your genitals before you are ready. So if your MO is get the woman in the bed and immediately go down on her, probably you are coming into that 10 to 30 minutes too early for her to really get anything out of it besides awkwardness. And if she gets herself into the right headspace, she could have an orgasm, but it is not anything more than you have an orgasm if eventually somebody's touching you long enough. But it wouldn't be as good as it could be if she had already been aroused when you started to go down on her. So this is another idea about what does it mean to turn on a woman. What it usually means is you are so nice, so sweet, so loving that she wants to get into the mood with you. She is then open to the idea of trying to have sex with you. At that point, actual long foreplay occurs, which can be kissing, touching, breast stimulation, things like that, back rubs, whatever she likes, and then we go to anything involving genitals much later. So what I hope that you get out of this is the idea of the reason that your wife isn't responding to your quote cute or quote sexy text messages or comments is because she isn't hungry and you're sending her a picture of a cookie that she doesn't want. And you know what? You can understand this better if you can think about it in that way, because if you weren't hungry and somebody sent you a 6-course meal, you would be like, oh, like, well, that's okay, nice, I guess. But you wouldn't say, wow, that's great. I can't wait to eat that, because you're not hungry. Okay, so you are not trying to physiologically arouse your wife. By the way, women aren't visual. So if there are people doing the direct dick pic thing, or even a picture of their face or a picture of whatever, it really doesn't do much. If your wife is visual, you will know, because she will have at some point wanted the lights on and to look at your body. Out of the honeymoon stage, where women may say things like that or even feel things like that, and then it doesn't continue. The majority of women are not visual. Men are visual. So there's really no equivalent of the sexy picture for both genders. However, the equivalent is a romantic text message. I love you so much. You're such a good wife. I'm so lucky to be with you. You looked beautiful today. That sort of stuff is equivalent to the man getting a visually arousing picture with a sexy message. All right, so hopefully this cleared up the idea of why you should not try to directly turn on your wife and why this goes to shit when you do try. And if you're not in this situation, then all my podcasts, if this is not your situation, man, you could feel so good about yourself and so lucky. And then you could tell your wife, I'm so glad that we have the kind of relationship where I could send you a picture of my penis and you're happy to see it. So for those 3 men that are out there in that situation, you should really be sending your wife flowers right now for being such a grade A, awesome person. And for everybody else, hopefully, I've normalized your wife's experience and given you analogies and explanations that can more easily explain to you what's going on in her head, which is, kind of usually a black box. All right. Thanks so much for listening. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. And if you're a subscriber, I will answer any question you have at any time. All right. Bye, guys.